Hi, we're here with David Kaufman. David is a partner with Thompson Coburn. David, please give us a little bit about your background.
I'm a lawyer predominantly for entrepreneurs, either people starting out or different paths in their entire process of creating businesses. I've worked at a variety of different law firms here in Chicago, both very large and some a little bit smaller.
Great. So, David, the big news is that the SEC has lifted the ban on general solicitation. If you can please give us a little background and tell us what this means for the private investment community.
Yeah, it's really a fundamental change in the way that securities can be offered these days. One of the big restrictions the SEC had was that for people who are offering their securities for their business, whether it's a startup business or an ongoing business, generally speaking, they couldn't do that through the internet or through what they have called general solicitation and general advertising, which is pretty much every method anyone would use these days to get the message out about their product or service. And now what the SEC has said is if you meet certain requirements, which I can go through in a second, you can advertise your business, try and raise money for securities through the internet, through any sort of social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever your followers are, you can now use those different methods and technologies to raise capital.
Great. And yeah, tell us a little bit about those requirements.
So the new requirements basically say you can offer those securities to anyone you want, even if they are not considered an accredited investor. And that's a defined term under the SEC rules. You can offer it to anybody, but the only people who can actually subscribe for these securities, they all have to be accredited investors. And you, as the issuer, the company selling those securities, must confirm, must verify, and must take what the SEC have defined as reasonable steps to verify that all those people are accredited investors.
What are the reasonable steps?
So, first of all, to be an accredited investor, you need to have, generally speaking, have earned $200,000 the last 2 years and a reasonable expectation to earn that in this upcoming year. Or, in addition, you can be an individual who has $1 million of net worth exclusive of your home. So, what have the SEC done to help people figure out if they've met the requirements to verify or taken those reasonable steps to verify? So there's a couple things people can do. One of them is, as you can tell, since the requirement is an income test, you can go to someone and say, hey, let me see your W-2, let me see your tax return, and then confirm for me in writing that you're going to meet these limits going forward for the next upcoming year. That may or may not be a palatable solution for a lot of people. They don't want to necessarily show their income levels to a company where they're investing. So they've also come up with some other ways, these non-exclusive safe harbors, basically, the SEC has used. So you could go to your accountant, your lawyer, or a financial advisor, generally speaking, someone who meets the requirements as a broker-dealer or investment advisor. And so long as those individuals or entities take those reasonable steps to verify, you as a company, you as an issuer, can rely on those third parties who have taken those steps to confirm accredited investor status.
Great. And now, can private placements still be done the old way?
Yes. There's been a little bit of confusion out there. A lot of people have bemoaned particularly this verification requirement because traditionally speaking, the way private placements have gone on in the past is, or the way they've gone on currently is, investors simply checked a bunch of boxes on a subscription agreement or investor questionnaire saying they met whatever requirements were necessary to make that investment. And the companies generally took all those pieces of paper and filed them in a filing cabinet and said, that's great, we now have what we need from you. So you can continue to do that. And you can continue to do the old system where you can offer through a private placement to accredited and people who are not accredited and have them still check those boxes and still throw them in the filing cabinets and not take advantage of these new rules. So the old regime continues in place. You can use it, but more importantly, there's a new regime that enables you to reach many, many more investors or possible investors.
Now, who do you think will be taking advantage of these new rules?
That's a great question. I think more and more companies who are trying to raise smaller amounts of money have been limited to really friends and family, or friends and family, or friends of family, or friends of family. And I think now the playing field is going to be opened up, particularly for those who are trying to raise a couple $100,000 or $1 million or $2 million, because now what they can do is they can post it through their Facebook friends or their Twitter followers, and all those people can then retweet them or link them to their Facebook pages, and particularly for groups that have some sort of affinity. So, for example, if you have a new cure for cancer or a diabetes drug or some new app that you think is great for some specific either cell phone or some other application, you're now going to be able to plug into that community or that pre-existing community and offer your securities up. Previously, you never could do that.
And now, do you think larger private equity funds will be taking advantage of this rule at all in the future?
I think that's one of the to be determined things. I think what will happen is private equity firms or venture capital firms always like to talk about their proprietary deal flow, the deals that they get that no one else has access to. And they rely a lot on the relationships that they have with other venture capitalists, with their investors, with other entrepreneurs who've been successful. And they spend an enormous amount of time keeping, managing, cultivating that relationship network they have. As we all know, the internet in some respects has leveled the playing field on a lot of these kinds of things, and I think the internet will have the opportunity to do that too. So, for example, if you have a great idea and you start publicizing that, I would not be surprised if some of these smarter, more forward-thinking venture capital firms contacted you and said, hey, we're interested in meeting, we're interested in talking to you. We found out about this through some third party, trolling on the internet, whatever. We found out about this and we'd like to talk to you about your great idea.
Sure. And now there's a few other rules that have been put in place, one of them being the bad actors rule. Can you touch on that?
Sure. So as part of this implementation of these new rules, Congress basically asked the SEC to implement rules about excluding bad actors. So basically what this means, if you're a fraudster out there, you've been convicted of securities fraud, you're subject to an injunction or some other order with the SEC or a state securities regulator, you're not going to be able to take advantage of these rules or other private placement exemptions. And again, for the vast majority of us who have complied with the law, this is a good thing. The more we can weed out the fraudsters, the better I think it is for everybody.
Great. And there's a few other additional amendments that are being added to Rule 506, one of them being Form D. If you can tell us a little bit about that as well.
Sure. So as part of the new rules, one of the things the SEC required issuers to do is to check a box saying whether or not they're participating in this new regime, these private placements that have utilized general solicitation. Going forward, they've also proposed a whole host of rules to really, I would say, modernize the whole private placement process. They're going to, at least as initially proposed, the SEC wants issuers to file a Form D when they initially start their offering, and then a closing Form D when their offering is completed. Part of this is to get a lot more information about what's going on in this market, because the SEC, by their own admission, has very little knowledge of exactly what the details are and going on in this market.
Do you think this will limit companies at all in taking advantage of the new rule?
I don't think so. It's, again, just another additional thing you're going to have to do, but the advantages, I think, are great. I think the new Form Reg D is going to ask for a lot more information, and I think that will, be one way of publicizing your transaction, because hopefully all these Form Ds are going to be public on the SEC's website, and I think that will be a good advantage, frankly, for companies looking to raise capital.
Great. And is there anything else that we should know about this new rule?
I think this is a tremendous opportunity for everybody who's involved in the deal community, anyone who's involved in raising capital. It's going to create new business opportunities for a host of different industries or or actors. So, for example, the verification process that we've talked about, there's going to be whole businesses that are going to be created to be the third-party verifiers for both issuers and their investors. I think as an investor, again, if you're a professional investor or even someone who likes to dabble in this area, there's a whole host of new opportunities that are going to be available to you that you never had the opportunity to even know about. And as a company trying to raise capital, or as a lawyer trying to help companies raise capital, this is a great opportunity to get the word out. And again, if it's a good idea, I think it will get funded.
Great. And now, what are some of the concerns that we should be worried about?
Well, I think one of the issues some people have raised is they said no one is going. If you're a sophisticated private equity investor, you're going to stop investing because you don't want to give out this information to a third party and have them read your tax returns, etc. And I think there's going to be different ways that are going to crop up so that as long as people meet those requirements, they'll be able to continue to invest. And I think it's a rule like any other. These are rules like any other rules in that people are going to figure out how to use them and where to push the boundaries and what they need to do in order to accomplish what they want through these new rules.
Great. David, thank you for taking the time to inform us and give us insight into the SEC's new ruling.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
If you're interested in learning more and connecting with David, go to fundology.com.